Ever wondered what is at the borderline of life and death? It's a virus. Let's get started. You might think that what is a virus? Recently, we have heard many claims regarding the advent of the outbreak of COVID-19. You must have known it. It has affected the entire world around us since the past 230 years now, as it has started in December 2019 in Wuhan, China. Virus is a microorganism. It is a microorganism. Now, the word microorganism can be interpreted as micro and organism, which can be further interpreted as microscopic organism. Microscopic organism, right? And now, what does microscopic mean? Mic- the word microscopic is derived from the word microscope. Microscope it is something to see really small things. So we can also interpret microscopic as microscope ic, which means an organism which is visible through a microscope. For example, bacteria. Bacteria is a microorganism. Now, microorganisms are living things, right? But there is one microorganism which is on the borderline of living and non-living. This correctly defines a virus. In simple terms, we can say that viruses are genetic material in a capsid. Capsid is basically a protein capsule. So basically we have this capsule. It can come in various forms. And now there's this genetic material. This genetic material is of two forms. Two forms. Okay. First of which is RNA. RNA or ribose nucleic acid. And second of which is very popular, DNA. Deoxyribose nucleic acid. Now, as I told before, a virus is a microorganism on the borderline of living and non-living. You may also think, how is it on the borderline of living and non-living? So, when viruses are not present in the host body, they are not living because they can't reproduce. There is a characteristic of living things that they can reproduce. So, virus cannot reproduce outside the host body. For example, there's a tree. Let's draw a tree here. And we also have a virus which affects trees. This is a virus which affects trees, right? Now, this virus outside the tree will be non-living, but when it enters inside the tree and takes control of the host machinery or the tree, when it takes control of the tree, it is living. So they can also reproduce inside the host body, which further indicating that it is living inside the host body, but outside the host body it cannot reproduce. So it is non-living. Now you might also think that how is a virus harmful? We have heard about COVID-19 and how it affects humans. It is harmful to humans. But how is it harmful? A virus is parasitic. A virus is parasitic, which means it relies on the host for its survival. So what a virus will do is it will take control of the host machinery once it enters the host body. But now, how will it take control of the host body? Right? How will it take control of the host body? The virus's membrane will actually combine with the host cell's membrane, and now the virus will be able to enter the cell. This can be explained like this. let's say this is the host cell. This is the cell membrane. And let's say that this is a spherical virus. Now this is a spherical virus. This is the host cell. Now what will happen is whenever the spherical virus it wants to enter inside the host cell. Now what will it do is the virus also has a cell membrane here. Let's name it as CM, right? Cell membrane. Now what will happen is this cell membrane, this is the cell's cell membrane, it will combine with the virus's cell membrane and now the virus can enter the cell. It can further do anything with the cell. It can use the cell's nutrients as it is parasitic. It can even destroy the cell. And the virus won't even get destroyed. Next, like when it destroys the cell, what will happen? It can, in similar fashion, it can reach out to other cells and destroy them. And that won't even take a lot of time for strong viruses to do. A virus can also reach the human brain if it is left untreated. Even though very few strong viruses can actually enter the brain, for example, there's a virus named as viral encephalitis. This causes an inflammation in the brain. Now, inflammation in the brain basically means a swelling in the brain, which can lead to headache, stiffness of the neck, sensitivity to light, mental confusion, and seizures. Seizures are basically when your nerves go out of control and they are not able to transmit all the information to the brain. This happens when there is too many electrical signals which are trying to transfer through the brain. Now, there are four types of viruses. First of which is the helical viruses. They resemble a cylindrical shape. A cylinder more looks like this. They resemble a cylindrical shape and are made up of one type of protein which is stacked around a central axis to form a helical structure. This is what it looks like. So basically there's this cylindrical shape and there's the genetic material inside, and this is a helical virus. Next up is a polyhedral virus. They are they are very complex in nature. Even though they are not very complex, their shape consists of 20 sites. So there's going to be this genetic material, let's name it as GM, acronym for genetic material. Now this genetic material is surrounded by multi-sided capsid. Capsid, it basically indicates like a cap. It is like a cap. It surrounds it. So it's going to be multi-sided. And so we will call this as a polyhedral virus. And then we have spherical viruses. For example, coronavirus. It is spherical in nature and shape. And then how does a spherical virus look like? Spherical virus resembles a sphere. They are spherical in shape and are enclosed in a membrane called envelope. Most of the spherical viruses also have spikes on their spherical surface, which is a sticky protein. This is a sticky protein which is used to stick to the host cells and take control of it. Once the sticky protein actually sticks to the host cell, it can enter inside the host cell and cause further damage. Next up are complex viruses. For example, bacteriophage. Bacteriophage is a complex virus. They resemble a lunar lander and they have a polyhedral head, a helical body, and helical legs. Yes, they are very complex. Also, the legs of the complex virus will attach to the cell's membrane so that transfer of genetic material from the virus to the cell membrane cell can takes place easily. A virus has to transmit to spread the infection to other people. Now, how does it transmit? It takes mostly A virus has to take out a fragment of the DNA from the infected and then put it into another organism, due to which the other organism also gets the first organism's DNA, due to which, since it is basically virus DNA which is getting injected into the other organism, and now the other organism will also become infected. So, first organism infected, I'll say first infected organism's DNA. Now, this DNA will go to this DNA injected. This will be injected inside the cell of the non-infected organism, leading to the non-infected organism to become infected. To become infected. Right? Now, a virus can actually transmit from one organism to another by various methods. One of which is touch. COVID-19 can do that, or SARS-CoV-2. Next is exhaled gases. And other one is exchange of bodily fluids, like transferring blood to another person. Next up is contaminated food or water, and then it's insects. Fun fact, a virus which infects bacteria is called bacteriophages. Virus affects all forms of life, be it bacteria, be it humans, be it plants. It can affect and infect all forms of life. So how will a bacteriophage infect the bacteria? A bacteriophage is, as told before, it is complex in shape. So it resembles a lunar lander. Now, what will those bacteriophages do? They will inject their genetic material into the bacteria's genetic material. So there's this bacteria. This is the bacterial cell, and there's our virus. This is our virus. More looks like a human, but it's a virus. Now, what will this virus do? It will inject genetic material into the cell wall of this bacteria, which will lead to this bacteria becoming infected. Now, you might also think that how is a virus created? A virus was basically a prehistoric, very old cell. It is a very old prehistoric cell. What do I mean by that? They are created from the genetic material of old cells. So, there's this old cell, it has this genetic material. Now, as cells go on, as life goes on, the cells will change, they will undergo mutations. Right? Now, what will happen is that this old prehistoric cell will become useless. Now, what does it do? It is a living organism. It needs to survive too. So, it ends up coming at the borderline of living and non-living, and it eventually becomes harmful to those new cells, eventually turning into a virus. Now, you might also think that how does a virus die? Now, as told before, a virus is on the borderline of living and non-living. Only living things die. Only living things have that characteristic to die because they are living. But non-living things don't die. Now, how do you expect an organism which is neither living nor non-living to die? How can that die? So we can say that a virus is on the borderline of living and non-living, and it is indirectly immortal. Now, you might also think we have heard many newses about the Omicron strain of COVID-19, the Delta strain. Now, these are strains of coronavirus. COVID-19 changed and it released a new strain. How did it change? When a virus changes, we call it that the has mutated. There is a genetic mutation in the virus. Now, what causes that change? What causes this change? Genetic modifications cause this change. So, viruses have molecules called nucleotides, which have to copy the entire genome sequence of the virus. Genome sequence basically means all the cells of the virus. So it has to copy all the genome sequence, and then it has to form a copy for reproduction, so that the virus, even if the virus dies, there are others of the same kind. Now, sometimes those copies can be different. When we say this, the virus can become a stronger, it can turn into a stronger virus or a weaker one. When this happens, we call that the virus has mutated. Now, there are viruses, we have heard that they are very dangerous. Now, there is a list of some viruses which are the most dangerous. First of which is HIV. It is the most dangerous virus of all time. There is no cure for this virus, and the mortality rate is astonishing. It is about 99.9999973,73475%. Now, such a high percentage might confuse you. How can it be so high? This means that out of 37.7 million people who were infected, these many people were infected and only one survived. All of them died. And the person who actually survived was a woman, and she recently survived. Now, how did she survive? She survived by a process which is known as stem cell transplant. So, what is going to happen here? All the cells of the woman were destroyed by a process known as high dose chemotherapy. Under this process, we destroy all the cells, and then all these cells were now destroyed. Now, more cells from another body were transplanted into her body, and she is now very fine. She is still en route to recovery because all of the cells were transplanted, so that takes a lot of time. But this cure for the HIV virus is not really that good. Why is it not good? Because the fatality rate of this procedure alone is really high, which means that it is very difficult to actually undergo this process properly. So I'll say HIV still has no cure. And why does it has no cure? Because it keeps changing. Yes. Next up is rabies. This is the most feared virus, as most people don't know what is HIV until like they go to their higher classes, they get to know about what is HIV or they got infected from it. Now, rabies is caused by dogs and it is the most feared virus. It has a mortality rate of 99% and it destroys the brain. Now, you might think that how does it destroy the brain? How does it destroy the brain? Once it destroys the brain is the main center of your body. Without the brain, your body won't work. So, the only way to survive from this virus is to consult a doctor even before symptoms appear, which happens once in a blue moon because how do you know you have the virus when you don't even have the symptoms, right? But on the bright side, it is preventable through vaccination. Next on the list is Ebola virus. This is another virus for which we cannot make any vaccine. Only one vaccine has been approved yet. Now, why can you not make a vaccine for this virus? It just keeps on changing, and whenever it changes, it undergoes so many drastic changes that the virus changes completely. So we have to make a vaccine again and again and again and again, which is just not possible. And most of the people can't even get vaccinated again and again and again and again because it is harmful. And only one vaccine has been created yet. And we can, as I told before, we can only make vaccines for this virus according to the strains. For example, there's this Zaire strain for which the Ervebo vaccine was made. It is 97.5% effective. Now, how was it made? Now, there is a virus named EVD. Now, the surface protein of the EVD virus was removed and it was replaced with the surface protein of the Zaire strain of the Ebola virus. This evoked an immune response against the Ebola virus. So this is a very complicated process. Next up is smallpox. Smallpox can be recognized as the old killer as the WHO, the World Health Organization, declared smallpox to be eradicated in 1980. But before 1980, every one person in three was infected from the virus. It had a mortality rate of 30%, which means almost 1 in 3 died. So every single one person out of 3 was infected, and almost one person out of every 3 died. This is very fatal. Those who actually contracted the virus, they had permanent and deep scars and wounds on their bodies, which was usually accompanied with blindness. Last on the list is hantavirus. This virus is spread by rodents who are the vectors here. Now you might think that what are vectors? Vectors are, you can say, non-infected transmitters. So let's explain this with the help of an example. Rodents are vectors in the case of hantavirus. This means that the rodents will not be suffering from hantavirus. They won't be having any disease. They won't feel any fever or cough or dryness or tiredness. They won't suffer from it. But they are infected and the virus does nothing to it. And then the virus can transmit through people, through the rodents, through their excreta, to be specific. Through their excreta, we can also contract the virus. It also has a mortality rate of 38%. But now you may think, if such a high mortality rate is there, why isn't it above the old killer or the smallpox? Smallpox has a mortality rate of 30%. Why? That's because the chances of you getting bit by a rodent are very low as compared to you getting smallpox. So, hope you learned something new. Subscribe and comment. Peace out.